How's everyone? So, we couldn't have picked a nicer day, right? So, to be inside since it's not raining in here. All right. What we're going to do is I just want to ask you this. What is the common denominator? You're like, well, that's kind of an open-ended question, right? So, let's say I give you an example. I give you an equation. I say U plus your relationships equal X result, or U plus your work equals an X result, or U plus anything you want to put in the box equals a result. So what would the common denominator be in there? Right. So we kind of go everywhere that we go. Anything that has to do with us, we're involved and we're responsible. And so you only want to be the best that you could possibly be in order to be able to get the most out of that. So why would you want to bring a lame version of yourself to anything, especially when it's going to affect you? And if you take an example like, let's say you learn and improve your communication skills. That's a good thing, right? And then you take those new and improved communication skills and you bring them with you to work. That's going to go pretty well, actually. And then you come home at night and you bring your good communication skills back with you to your family. Again, going to go well. All right. But let's say somebody is extremely stressed out. They're just stressed out of their mind. And they go to work. There's going to be problems. Okay. And it's going to get worse. And they're going to get even more stressed out. And then they're going to go home to their family. And that's not going to end well. All right. So, but what's the issue? It's the stress. Now, if that individual woke up in the morning and practiced Tai Chi and Qigong and kind of cleared everything out and got into a good headspace and wasn't being held captive by all the stress in his world, because the stuff's going to be there either way. It's just how you frame it or how you deal with it that's going to have the effect of it and what it's going to do to you or for you, depending on which way things go. Now, if that person that got all stressed out, again, was kind of had a way to make himself, not immune from the situation, but being able to deal with the situation very easily, life gets a lot easier. But again, when you're bringing that to every aspect of your life, so if you look at that, it's kind of a larger deal, because it's not just about, well, I got cranky at work and I was all stressed out at work. No, that's going to carry over into other things. You go everywhere you go, and it's important to, kind of be at your best. Now, if developing yourself and trying to make a more improved version of you, if you do that, you are going to have to change. You're going to have to make changes and do things maybe a little bit differently in order to get that change. And everyone doesn't like change. Change is uncomfortable. Change is unknown. Change is different. So everybody wants to kind of shy away from that. But it is important to make those changes and those improvements. I mean, what if you never maintained or did anything to your car ever? You know what I'm saying? Or anything, or your house. Even your house would fall apart if you didn't constantly paint, nail things in, just, do that maintenance. But a lot of people, they just stop learning, growing, and doing things once they get out of college. That's it. I did my tour. I got my piece of paper. I graduated. I don't have to learn anymore. I'm all set. And that's not exactly how it works. Life goes on, and you have to continue to evolve and continue to change. Change you can look at as evolve. What I'm saying? Because it's not always just that stark. But there's really 3 times that it's kind of easy to make easier to make a big change. So you have, if let's say you just become truly inspired. You see something, a movie or something, and it just catches you, and you see exactly what you want to do, and you become very inspired, and you just, no holding you back. The other time that can happen is when you just get so sick and so tired of your situation, and you're like, I can't live another day like this. I got to change something. And then there's always trauma. That always works well, and actually that's probably the most common. And when I say trauma, I mean just really getting shocked, shock to the system. You get really bad blood work back on your annual physical, or something really bad happens to somebody that and you could see yourself in those same shoes, if you don't make some type of change. And so those are probably the times that's easiest for you to actually make that shift. You've got enough inspiration there, whether it's negative or positive, it's still inspiration to actually go and do something about it. Now, if we're making changes, you can't just change something for a day and then say, okay, well, I did my change, I did my thing, I exercised 3 days in a row, I'm all done. It just doesn't work that way. Whatever it is that you're doing has to be done on a consistent, regular basis for a long time. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's going to consume you, but it's something that you've added to your repertoire. It's kind of like when you were a kid and you started brushing your teeth, and then you learned how to take a shower, but you didn't stop brushing your teeth. It's one of those things you're adding things on, but really just trying to replace things because there's, limited time in the day. But the way that we're able to do this is form habits. We're actually designed to form habits. Like our brain works that way. It loves habits. It loves routine. That way we don't have to remember and relearn everything before we do it. You learn how to tie your shoes once, you do it the rest of your life without thinking. And there's a lot of things like that, within us. But if you want to form a habit, the conventional wisdom on that is you do something 30 days in a row, forms a neural pathway in your brain, connects you to the neural net, so now it's wired, you're at unconscious competence, and you just do it regularly. In theory, that's how that works, but not everything can be done every day. Let's say I want to make a habit of traveling more. You can't travel every single day. It's got to be spaced out. So it kind of goes to more of a spaced repetition, where you just kind of do things on a consistent basis. It's not going to be every day, so it's not going to follow the whole 30-day golden rule, but it will get the job done. And again, on some things, it's impossible to do that every day. It doesn't make any sense. Now, something else that, as we go, if anybody has any questions, comments, or just would like me to kind of, go a little bit further into something just to get a little more clarity, just let me know and we'll bring you into the conversation. But the thing I wanted to talk about is something that's very subtle, but it stops a lot of people from doing things. And you don't even know it. It's very slippery. Okay, very sneaky. What it is, it's called an emotional agreement. Has anyone ever heard of that before? Yep. Okay, good. So it's one of those things where it's not even something that you verbally agree to. It's just you agree to be who you are as people see you. And you're not going to change, because then that change will mess them up. Because then they either have to change or accept change. And it kind of puts you in a spot. And here's it's an example. I'll just use, let's say, a teenager, right? He's hanging out with all his friends, and they dress all grungy, and they don't look really good. And they're not really very thoughtful as to how they dress, and, they're just dressing like teenagers that don't care. And that's fine, because they're kids. But then a couple years passes by, and one of those kids goes, you know what? I'm dressing like a kid, and I'm going to be an adult soon, and I want to be treated more seriously, so maybe I should dress just a little bit nicer. Maybe I should wear nice jeans instead of torn jeans. Maybe I should, and they want to make those changes. And so they go, okay, I'm going to start dressing a little bit nicer. And it already feels a little uncomfortable because it's new, you know what I mean? So you're feeling a little self-conscious. You're not feeling all that great. You're a teenager. You still got hormone stuff going on. You got all kinds of craziness going on as a teenager. So, so it's really hard. So it's a big step. And they put those clothes on and they go in there. And then their friends that are dressed in grungy clothes start teasing them. Okay, because now if that person continues to dress nice, now they have to. Or everybody can see where they stand. So they're going to give that person, try to suck them back in, back to the dark side, over here, where you dress messy. But it's just something where you just kind of bump up against everybody else that's in your environment because they're used to you being a certain way, and they kind of count on that. It's like every office has a jerk there, right? Well, what if the jerk at the office stops being a jerk and changes? you don't know who the enemy is anymore. It's like, what do you do? You know what I'm saying? So you kind of like, there's safety in knowing who everybody is and what they're about and what they do, and they have their little roles, and you can, kind of work off of that. But it's a very subtle thing, but it's just how other people are going to affect you, and also how you're feeling, in that situation. It's a whole mix, of different aspects of it, but it really does have an effect. And I'm sure you can relate to that. Just anytime you've ever tried to make a wardrobe or a hairdo change or, any kind of thing going, you want to, it's a little, there's a certain amount of anxiety that goes along with it. It's not a bad thing. It's just, it's just different. And so you'll feel a little different from it. Now, what I'd like to do is start to talk about some of the different subjects within, I wrote the book, You Are the Common Denominator in Your Life, and that's kind of where we're coming from with this information today. And it was just a conversation that I would have with students every day. You know what I mean? It's like, you're the common denominator. If you change, everything changes. Every aspect. Your relationships have a better chance. You should be able to do a little better at work. You should just feel a lot better just personally, just how you feel every day. And that's because, ultimately, that's kind of what it's about anyway, right? And so what I want to go over is attitude. And I know that, again, that can be kind of a broad subject, but attitude, the way we're going to look at it is how you face the world and address the world based on your views, filters, and perspectives, and then you address the world from there. And that's a very specific place, because everybody's very different, unique. You have very different experiences, and you're going to find yourself just, kind of having a very different perspective than the guy next to you, and a very different approach to things. Now, if you took two people, let's say they were two people with similar skill sets, and they have one opportunity in front of them. Now, the first person looks at that opportunity and goes, well, there's a little bit of risk, but I can see there's a lot to be gained, and it looks like it's going to be a little bit of work, but I can do work, and I'm pretty good at it, and I think I'm pretty on the ball, and I think I could probably do this. And he just has a pretty, grounded, but a good attitude towards it. Then the second person looks at it and goes, wow, there's risk in that. Oh, boy. And that's a lot of work. I don't know. I could probably do it. I don't know. But sometimes I mess up on these things, and they don't always go well. And, so he's got this whole negative Nelly thing going on looking at it. Even though they're both equally skilled, who do you think has the better chance of succeeding in that? Yeah. It's the first one isn't guaranteed to win, but the second one is guaranteed to lose based on their attitude. They don't even have a chance coming from there. So really, when we speak of, your attitude, that's really important, because the attitude that you bring to anything that you do is going to be one of the deciding factors whether or not it works out. Because it really does make a difference. Because when you approach something with a bad attitude, you cut corners. You don't actually go the extra mile. You try to cut it short. You know what I'm saying? Because you're not expecting to win, so you don't really care. I just want to go through the motions and be done, and and have the result. But that's something that I think is important to look at, but from a few different ways. If you look at somebody, as soon as they start talking, they're going to tell you exactly what their position is. Because when you talk about attitude, it's kind of like the position that you're taking. It's like, I don't like ketchup on my hot dogs. It's just whatever it is. You're taking positions on things because of experiences that you've had. And really, and sometimes they're ridiculous. It's not even legitimate. It's like, but we're not having hot dogs right now. You know what I'm saying? It's just like, what did that have to do with anything? But again, it's how we shoot ourselves in the foot. It's how people hold themselves back because they get tied up to something that really isn't even real, isn't even really there. And so you don't really have to deal with it. Now, attitude, it all starts in the mind. Everything does. But attitude starts in the mind. But the thing is it starts out as thoughts. And then it turns into words, which then turns into actions, which turns into results. I mean, Lao Tzu put it best when he said, be careful of your thoughts because they become your words. Be careful of your words because they become your actions. Be careful of your actions because they become your habits. And be careful of your habits because they become your character. And your character will define your destiny. So, that was written in like 200 BC. It's still very, very relevant. That was the founder of Taoism, way back when. Again, that's a quote that's, lived on for a pretty long time. So it's, got something to it. But it's very true. Because when you're thinking about something, aren't you going to say it? And you're like, oh, did I really say that out loud? One of those. And then, you're talking about stuff and you're literally declaring things that you really don't want to do. You're declaring what you don't want, which is really a bad plan. And, and of course it's going to come, the self-fulfilling prophecy. Why doesn't anyone do that with good stuff? They always get the self-fulfilling prophecies that go sideways on them. It's like you never hear about the good ones. But, yes.
Thoughts comes in place now. So I'll raise my hand.
Okay.
So it's called, I'm not sure if you heard, unconscious inertia.
I haven't heard that specific, but I can gather what it probably is.
Right. So even though you know that what you want to do, there is a step back not to follow that, what is right.
Yeah, well, it's kind of like lack of self-discipline. It would be another, something akin to it. Because you know the right thing and you just can't get yourself to do it. Is that what you're saying? Yeah, you just don't have that discipline. You don't have that inspiration. And then if you had that going, then you probably would. But people, they tend to get in their own way. They know, it's like, you should eat right, but you don't. And you want to. It's just the time, and I don't have time to prepare a meal. That drive-through is so easy. There's all these things that we kind of know better, and we know that we know better, and we know that we should, but we allow ourselves not to. And the less you can do that, the better. And I think that's part of even what we're talking about, where if you're making these little changes, I used to eat a lot of fast food, and I had a really tight schedule, and I didn't have time to cook, and so I went with the fast food thing, and it wasn't good for me, and I knew that. So then I decided, all right, I'm not going to eat, this is 2007, I go, no more fast food. Fast food being defined as McDonald's, Burger King, that type of thing, not Chipotle's or Five Guys. Okay? So let's just get that clear. But I said I just wanted to give up the really bad fast food. But I gave myself, you got to kind of set yourself up to win on things. And I said, but I'm allowed to go to one once a month if I want. I mean, I really didn't. Every once in a while I might, just to remind me why. Why I stopped. But it does taste good. But by giving myself that out, where I go, all right, you can do it once a month, any place you want to go. And a lot of months I didn't. But because I could, I didn't feel like it was being withheld from me, then I was better with it. So just, you got to cut yourself a little slack and make it doable for you. Don't just set up these goals and set up these things that you're going to do. I'm going to do this. I'm going to do it every day for 6 hours. Yeah, for one day. You know what I mean? And then you're going to go off the rail pretty quick because it was just not sustainable. Now, do you know that when you smile or you laugh that you release dopamine? The happy hormone, okay? It kind of makes you, it's really good for your immune system's all pumped up and everything. And it's just from laughing. So, you can choose your emotions a lot of times. I mean, sometimes you can't, but, technically you could, but you can't. And because it's too emotional, ironically. But it's just one of those things that if you can produce good chemicals, because every time you think a thought, you release a chemical. And it's going to feed, like if you think about something that pisses you off, It's going to shoot you some anger juice, you know what I mean? And then it's going to fire you up, or, you're watching the sad movie and it's going to send you some little sad hormones. And, but there are hormones that match to all of your emotions and all of your thoughts. And so it chemically affects your body, and considering they figured this out. On average, you have 50,000 thoughts a day. If 51% of them are positive and good, you're in. That's all you need to be able to do. And that's actually, I've heard masters even refer to that as enlightenment. If you can be positive 51% of the time, that is enlightened. Well, if you can do 51%, you can shoot way up really fast from there, because it's almost like the first 50 is the hard ones. And then once you break past that 51%, it actually gets easier because you're already on that track. So you're not really fighting it so much. Trying to get to that first 50%, there's a lot of back and forth. There's a lot of resistance. There's a lot of, I want to, but, your emotions, triggers, things like that affect you and you wind up off in the weeds. But again, that's kind of just what we're shooting for. So our thoughts are going to either help us, hurt us, or be neutral. But if we can consciously try to bring out ones that are going to be more helpful, that's going to help feed that attitude that we're trying to have, and trying to actually kind of proactively make all these things happen. Set yourself up. And it can be done. It's not that hard. You just have to be conscious of it. You have to be looking for it and looking at it, because that's kind of what's going to really make a difference. Okay, now what's another big thing that we could change, that would make a big change all across the board? How about our health? I mean, a lot of you are, training in martial arts here and kind of know this one. And realize that that's why you're here. But a lot of people don't. They know it. It's kind of one of those things where I want to eat right, or I want to exercise, or I want to do this, but they just need some trauma in most cases. You know what I mean? Something they have to see, something they have to hear that's going to go, I better get going. I don't want that to happen to me. And I actually went through, I got an example for you. How about this? If the idea is for our attitude, we want to be positive and feel good and just, kind of be taking on the world and doing our thing. If we want to be doing that, then we have to be in that state, correct? We have to be aware of our state and be able to dictate it. Well, let's say Monday morning you wake up. Now, if you got a good night's sleep and you don't have anything crazy going on that week, but can you look forward into the week and say, okay, I'm going to take on this week and I'm going to eat it alive because I'm fired up. I'm going to have a good week. I got a good weekend. I'm going to just go. And so you could be in a really good place, right? But what happens if you wake up in the morning and you have the flu? Pretty hard to feel good. Pretty hard to get in that I want to take on the world mode. I just want to survive and live through the day. You know what I mean? If it's a really bad one. So your health is going to dictate your attitude a lot. If you're all miserable and achy, and how are you supposed to feel good? I mean, I guess it's possible. Some people can, because they somehow can find a silver lining. But most people won't. Okay? They won't even look. All right? And it's just because the health has such an effect on us. I mean, really, you know what I'm saying? I mean, our health is, if it goes too sideways, the game's over. So, I mean, it is really an important aspect of our lives in having that health and being proactive. It's not like you want to wait till you get sick and then go get healthy. That's hard. That's hard work. If you just do little things now and make changes, eat something a little more nutritious than a cupcake. You know what I'm saying? Just make those little changes. Don't eat after a certain hour. Just find things that will help you to manage your body and manage your health. And obviously training is huge, because you don't even realize all the stuff that's going on in your body when you do martial arts. There's things that are being activated and moved Even you have a pump, and actually for your spine, and it only will pump your cerebral spinal fluid if you move it. It's like a hand crank. You have to actually make it go in order for it to work. But what it does is it shoots that fluid all the way up so that it cleans your brain, and it cleans the plaque off of it, and allows it to be able to stay healthy. And you don't wind up with issues later, hopefully. Because that's a lot of the dementia and that type of thing. There's a lot of plaque issues and things. There's a lot to all of that, even just sleeping correctly. Getting a good night's sleep, because when you sleep correctly, in other words, you get into a good deep sleep, your brain shrinks about 10%. And it reduces the inflammation, and it allows the cleaning to take place, because then the fluids can come through and clean it all up nice. Okay, but a lot of your brain issues come from inflammation, prolonged inflammation. And then as you get older, it's just all the wear and tear and all the pressure and all that stuff just, kind of just, comes to get you. All right, so that's something we always want to stay after. Although I did see an article that they were talking about how exercise, and they didn't go into specifics on the type, but that exercise itself is actually helpful with dementia, anxiety, and depression. So, a lot of this we know inherently, but now they're actually doing tests, and they're actually proving this in a way that everyone can see and understand. So you don't have to just know anymore, I guess. But I went through a lot of statistics just looking at the health issues these days, because it's interesting to kind of see where everybody stands. And what I found, this was a study from 2015, but it was the CDC. And they basically said that 50% of people in America, adults, have a chronic disease. Cancer, diabetes, debilitating arthritis, something of that caliber. That sounds pretty scary, right? Well, you want to hear the scariest part? Is that 2/3 of those individuals, had they done something a little bit differently, it was totally preventable. It was just, they blew up to 400 pounds and they immediately got diabetes. You know what I'm saying? It's just, there's all these things that you do that cause that to happen. And that's because I'm reading all this, I'm going, this is a horror show, right? And they were talking about the kids and where they stand, and they're not doing much better. 1 out of 4 people is diagnosable with a mental issue, whether depression, anxiety, that type of thing, which is scary. And, just looking at these stats is just horrifying. But then to see that 2/3 of them, it's their own fault, they didn't even think it was totally avoidable, that's scary. And then I went and looked for positive stuff, and I looked into exercise. How many people are exercising? How are they doing with that? Horrifying. Okay? Then I went and I looked at least maybe they're eating better, right? So I went to the statistics on that. They were talking about, like the standards were, you eat 1 piece of fruit or vegetable in a day? Yeah, aren't we supposed to have 7? You know what I'm saying? And they're like, do you have a piece of vegetable or fruit once a week? Or, It was just like the standards were like crazy, like how are they even going to be alive kind of a thing. But it was just looking at it. So basically, very few people are exercising, moving their body. We're made all out of water, right? Like 70%. What happens to water when it sits still for too long? Putrefies, right? It becomes stagnant and putrefies. Now it's all green and stuff. There was a grandmaster that was telling a story. He's talking about came out into the backyard, and his daughter had a bottle of water sitting out on the porch, and she's looking at it. So he comes out. Now, this grandmaster is actually a scientist, like world-renowned scientist, okay, at a very high level. And so he comes out and wants to see what his daughter's doing, and she goes, doing an experiment, with an attitude, right? And he's, so what are you experimenting? So, I want to see if water rots. And eventually it turned green, just from sitting there and not moving and being in the sun. But it was just kind of interesting. But just but when I heard that story, the first thing I thought of is I'm made out of water. So if people don't move their bodies, they're going to become stagnant and putrefy. Maybe not literally, but you know what I'm saying? Bad things are going to be happening. So it is important to move your body, to exercise. And it's very, it's critical. And a lot of people don't do anything, and they just get very, very unhealthy. So one thing that's very important is if you're going to exercise, you got to do the exercises or the method of exercise that actually is good for you. You know, if you're 80 years old and haven't exercised in a long time, you go, I'm going to do powerlifting and running. Great. So send me the card for your funeral. You know what I mean? Because you're gonna tax the body unbelievably, and it's a matter of finding that right balance with your age, physical condition, and then the amount of energy that's actually going to take to do. Because if you don't have a lot of energy to give and you do something overly strenuous, you're going to just drain yourself, and you're not going to be able to recover, because it's all about the recovery. You know, if you do something and you just do it every day and it's just too much, and you never give the body the time to recover, because as you age, it takes longer to recover. Starting at age 33, it becomes difficult to recover. Now, there's actually things that go on at that age, 33 to 59, where you actually stop getting an abundance of remodeling hormones. And so you actually have to strategically traumatize your body with exercise to get your body to send the remodeling hormones so that you maintain your muscle tone. So anyone over 40 or 50 will know that your muscle tone will go away if you don't use it. If you have a nice muscular body, that's great, but if you stop making it that way after that age, it won't stay that way. When you're 20, it stays exactly the way you put it. It never moves, right? You get in really great shape, and you don't even do anything for 3 weeks, and it doesn't even matter. Try that at 60. You're going to see a big change. So your body is in a different place, in a different state, in a different place of need, and it's important to understand what it is that actually you need, and be mature enough to go, I need Tai Chi, I don't need powerlifting. Okay? You got to be able to just be real with where your body's at, with what's actually going to give you true health. True health isn't bulging biceps and ripped abs. Okay? It's your blood work. It's having all the right numbers on it. In other words, that's what's going to make you live longer. Others, how big your biceps are doesn't make you live longer. But, your blood pressure does, or any of all that blood work that we get every year in our physicals, and it just tells you the health of your organ systems. And that's really, that's kind of the big deal. You have to make sure that you're doing something that's actually showing results in health, not in just looking good or feeling like you got my workout in. Great. If all is it doing is draining your body and making you feel tired all the time because you're just all depleted, that's not helpful. And a lot of people just don't quite get that math. So it's really important to do the right type of movement at the right ages so that you get the right result. Because if you try to do at the age of 40 what you do at 20, you'll probably hurt yourself. Not that you're bust something or anything. It's just going to drain your body. It's just not going to give you a healthy result. You know what I'm saying? It's not going to result in like a visible injury maybe, but your body just can't recover. And now you're actually getting run down. You're actually falling apart from trying to do something good. How ironic is that? So doing the right thing and it winds up trashing you. So it's a matter of, again, finding that right thing. And martial arts is very cool that way because it has the whole gamut. You have the real physical movements and really, the extreme training. And it can come all the way down to just simple Qigong or Tai Chi. And then there's a lot of information that you can understand intellectually along that path too, with your study, with your understanding, and that really helps. Because remember, when we learn, it actually does what? What happens when we learn? We talked about this earlier.
Good hormones.
Yeah, we get dopamine, our friend. Okay, so because those hormones are really good for you, and you can stimulate them and get them. We're actually programmed to want that. We want, because if we expand, if we grow, if we do something, we actually get good stuff. You know what I'm saying? So we get rewards. We're like the puppy that gets a biscuit if we do the right thing, But the right thing here is just learning or just really getting into a really happy state, and you'll get that. Does anybody have any questions as we go?